Hi, you guys. Happy Thursday. So, I'm here live for the second episode of Love with No Conditions. So, this is going to be a whole series about unconditional love. And I'm really going to be asking for guidance on honestly how to share this because it's such a huge topic that it's like, where do I even start? There's so much that we can talk about. So, I encourage you, if you have specific questions coming through, please comment them. So that I can see them later and talk about it in another episode, or so I can answer them for you live while I'm here with you. So, unconditional love, I want you to really think about as a vibration. And in the first episode of this, if you go back to my IGTV page, if you haven't watched it, watch it, because I talk more about what unconditional love is. So basically, love with no conditions, right? So I want you to consider this a vibration. And just think about it as that for now. Something that you can tap into. And I asked my guides before this, like, what are some starting points that you think are the best way for us all to really step into unconditional love? And then I thought about for myself, what were kind of the things that I went through in my mind and in my heart that allowed me to step into that more. By the way, when I say that, it's a vibration we tap into. We're learning how to be in that like much more often of the time. So eventually we can completely, fully embody that. But I'm not coming to you like as a perfect angel, always embodying unconditional love. It's just something that's on my mind a lot of the time. And I try to incorporate that in my communication with people, but I'm not perfect. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, could have been a lot better at that. Like next time I'll do better. And it's just really just about the awareness of learning where we're not showing unconditional love and kind of like our spots where we go out of it really quickly. So I have a couple of pointers just to start with today, and then we'll kind of just see where it goes. So unconditional love really starts with a choice. First of all, everything is rooted in love or fear. So, I mean, wow, I could go so many directions with that. But when we think about unconditional love, we need to think about it first as starting as a choice. So do you want to be coming from love in your communications with people? Do you want to be coming from love in your experience of life? Or do you want to be coming from a space of fear? And many of you watching this are probably in the personal development space, spiritual community, something of that sort. So you're very familiar with the love and fear dynamics. But most of our thought patterns, most of our beliefs are really actually very fear-based. They're not truly coming from love because a lot of us just don't have that example. And most things in our world today we see are coming from a base of fear instead of love. So when you're thinking about how can I be more unconditionally loving in my life, there's a lot of like directions that could be going. And that's why I want you to think of this just as a vibration. But the directions that it could be going could be to others, to yourself, the vibration of unconditional love that's coming from the divine. If you saw my post today, that's more of what I was talking about there. It's this just like completely blissful, pure love experience. And I think that that's even something much bigger than unconditional love. Here on earth as humans, we display this as unconditional love. So it starts as a choice. So do you want to show this in your communications? And then it's about really getting honest with yourself. Where am I not showing this? Where am I coming from fear or from, another form of this fear? Let's just talk about in communications with other people. Let's talk about like when you're like verbal communications and conversations you have with others. I'm in the records right now, kind of my guides are giving me support on where to take this so it supports you the most. So they're telling me to focus on conversations that you have with other people. When you shut down in conversations, or when you go straight to your temper, or when you go straight to lashing out at someone, or when you go straight to, that side of yourself that I'm talking about. We all have it. Some of us express it a lot more than others, a lot more freely. Others don't express it at all, so it's actually unhealthy. So there's this continuum, there's this like spectrum of what's healthy and what's unhealthy, right? And I guess we kind of want to be in the middle of like the neutral space. Because if you overexpress that side of yourself, it's like pretty toxic to everyone around you and to yourself. But if you don't express any of that, verbal communication, really speaking your truth, that's unhealthy too, and then you're suppressing things. So what I'm really talking about though is like that unhealthy form of communication. Like I said, when we're lashing out at others. These are the moments when we can really express choose to express unconditional love, but often it takes us like noticing where we're not showing it first. And so we have to take a really brutal, honest look at ourselves, which might be difficult. Like, wow, I am really toxic, or wow, I am really like not showing up as my highest self in these situations. And to me, it really comes down to a choice of, do I want to be exuding love or do I want to be exuding fear? And when we lash out at others, it's like, this is not the person I want to be. This is not the way that I want to be like expressing my love with someone else. So first, I guess it's kind of about learning, like when you're in that space, when you're shutting down, when you're feeling rejected, abandoned, hurt, whatever it might be, something that causes you to close your heart and your natural reaction is defensive or something harsh. It's like, okay, how can I take a moment and what will remind me to snap out of that? So sometimes you have to physically say, if you're having a conversation with someone, physically say like, look, I need a few minutes. I'm going to say something I regret, or I need a few minutes. Just give me a couple minutes to breathe and I'm going to come back. Or if this is like over text or on the phone, you can do the same thing. With text, you just take longer to respond, right? So giving yourself time to calm down. This has helped me so much. But it's so interesting because our like patterns are so deeply ingrained. Even though I've been working on this for a really long time and really trying to do my best at it, they're literally today. I'm like, wow, I'm gonna say a video about this, and like, I didn't do anything like bad, but I'm looking at the way that I communicated about something and like, I could have done that in a more loving way. But then you can look at the progress and the growth. So, taking a few minutes to yourself, calming yourself down before you respond to anything, so that you can really look at like, what's my hurt emotions here? Where is my like hurt little child coming forward here? How would my higher self handle this? Breathe through it. Use all of your tools. Use your oils. Use your tools. Like, do whatever you need. Take a walk. Go look at some plants. Hold your stuffed animal. Whatever is going to help you calm down. And there's actually, I'm so bad at science, you guys. Like, I'm not going to explain this well, but maybe somebody can explain it. So the difference between men and women, there's scientific like evidence, behavioral evidence, that men and women process these types of conversations differently. So typically men will need more of a period of time to cool down and like look at the scenario logically, and women are like more open to talking about everything then. However, like, I actually know a lot of people, and myself included, I always need space to calm down and come back. Otherwise, I'm a fire sign. Like, I have a lot of fire energy, and I can just like, it can just come out so fast. And like, to protect yourself, I'm going to back away. So to protect yourself, I'm going to back away. To protect myself, I'm going to back away and give this some space. So that's one thing. It's a choice in how we want to converse with other people. And it's something we get to practice. So let's see, what else? Really thinking about like, what's the type of person I want to be. For me, everything really comes down to like, really everything in my life. It's like, I want to be proud of myself. When I am on my deathbed in 1,000 years, lying on a beautiful island in Bali, I really want to just say I was proud of myself. And I'm not the moments you have, there's even like TikTok trends of this where it's like, you know what I'm talking about? And, those moments where you're just like, let's not look at that. Like, they're just these cringeworthy moments. Like, it's so easy to have those. But as we mature and as we grow, we want to be able to be proud of our communications with people. Like, one thing, I'm just going to brag on myself for a second. Not even that. I'm so proud of my breakup that I had with my former partner, because it was so civil and so loving, and it's like, it could have gone so differently. And now for the rest of my life and his, we can both look at that like, wow, we both really showed up with like dignity, with nobility, with respect for each other. And then there's the moments where I remember that I didn't show up in that, and I'm like, oh, let's just not talk about that one, okay? Memory, forget that one. So, who do you want to be? What type of person do you want to be? Do you want to be someone that people Okay, here's something. So this might be for someone who's watching this now or watching the replay. Do you want to be someone that people are like afraid to have deep conversations with? Because if you're that person who lashes out and just, the words are just so cruel and mean, and you know that, do you want to be that person? How does being that person make you feel? First of all, accepting that you are that way. So I can be really like, not so much anymore, but in the past, I can be very like cruel with the words that I would say. And so I had to really look at myself like, is this how I want to be remembered? Is this what I want to, is this how I want, is this who I want to be? This is not a way that I want to live my life, and not a way that I want to be remembered. So that really helps. Find your own motivation though. For me, that's my personal motivation, is like always being proud of myself. But you may have another motivation that helps you. But it's like, how can I be more loving in this situation? And then looking at the times that you've messed up and thinking, how could I have done better? And then it's like learning process, right? Then every conversation you have or every experience you have with someone else, you can be getting better. I'm going to do a whole episode about unconditional love with yourself, because that's really important too. But I feel like this is important today for some reason, for somebody watching. So, and what kind of life do you want to live? What I was saying before that I kind of got off track of is like, how do you want other people to feel when they come to you with a tough conversation? Do you want them to feel afraid that you're going to like spit fire at them? Or do you want them to say, you know what, he or she is going to be able to respond to me in a patient, loving way? So it's just like working yourself up to that, right? So the next thing that the guides wanted me to share is that, starting to practice this in the really big moments and the really small moments. Because here's actually a really cute example. I really like this. So when I was probably like 5 years ago, my cousin Brianna came to stay with me in Orlando for a couple of days. And I remember we were out like going to look at puppies or something. We were walking on the sidewalk, and she walked like way out of the way. I was like, what are you doing? She walked way out of the way, like deep into this parking lot, because she saw one water bottle. And then she went to throw it away. And I'm like, she walked so far out of her way to throw that away. That was an act of unconditional love for the environment, for like even just like wanting us to all live in a place that's clean, right? And now ever since then, every single time I see trash on the ground, I always think about that moment, and I throw it away, and I think of my cousin. So this would be an example of, in the really small moments, what would be the unconditionally loving thing to do? There's so many different examples of things that we could do with this. You find a spider in the house and you don't kill it. That's the unconditionally loving thing to do. So a couple of questions, there's 2 questions that they gave me. Number 1, how would you want to be treated? This is another way that you can kind of like spin this, going back to our conversation piece. How would you want to be treated? Because if you're doing something, and there's just a lot going on with the throat chakra today. So let me know in the comments if this is resonating. I see some of you guys with like the hands, amen, hands up, yep. Okay, cool. And if you're watching this in the replay, comment too, so I know that this is helping you as well. How would you want to be treated? If you're doing something different, if you would not accept, tolerate, or appreciate the way that you're communicating with others, I'm like, ooh, that's a tough one even for me. I'm like, note to self. And we want to be easy on ourselves as we see these things and observe this within ourselves, because this is the really hard work to do. This is the really hard work to look at. But we do want to make those changes, right? So it's like being accountable for them, but also being gentle, like, look, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm learning, and I'm going to do better next time. So then maybe asking yourself, how would I want to be treated? That was the first thing that I said, wasn't it? How would I want to be treated? But like, yeah, in a different way. So if I'm treating someone this way, how would I want to be treated? So how can I treat them that way in response? What would you be proud of? Coming back to that. What kind of behavior would make you proud? And this is something you can think about for future events too. So like for any big conversation you have to have, or any tough choice you have to make, like, okay, how do I want to show up in this moment with this person? What are the values that I want to exude? What are the things, how do I want them to feel when the conversation's done? How do I want to feel when the conversation's done? I want to be patient. I want to be loving. I want to take my time and be honest. Just such a great tool is like slowing down. Could be just advice for life. Slow down in everything. But truly, like in communications, sometimes we just talk, or people, I notice this because I'm a really good listener. People will talk just to fill the space, and it's like, just don't say anything and notice what comes up in that, because sometimes it's like you can just keep talking, and then sometimes when you're talking so much, you just start saying things that you don't even really mean, or you start saying things that aren't exactly how you wanted it because you're going so fast, you can't really hone in. So slow down, take a break, allow there to be like silence and communication, allow there to be some soft space. And then the last thing I wrote for the second tip is just practice makes perfect. Again, you're always doing your best with this. We didn't learn this in school. We should. I should just make like a poster of all the thousands of things that we should learn in school. And then maybe one day, I mean, I'm sure not just me, everyone could do that. One day we'll learn all these really important things. But maybe we're the generation that changes that. Maybe we're the era that changes all of that. So being easy with yourself, but also being accountable. Because also, as always, however, like our small, I want to call it like devotion to love. That's really what unconditional love is. You're being more devoted to love than you are being devoted to fear. The tiniest things that we choose to do. So for example, I'm just going to keep going back to this example because I think it's a really good one. And I've done this in other ways and with other people as well. But when my engagement split off, like so many people around Zach and I were like, how did you guys do that? So many people around us saw it, even if they didn't say anything, and it impacts them, right? It's that ripple effect. So someone else noticed, even maybe someone from afar, like, wow, they had a really simple breakup and they were together for almost a decade. Like, that's kind of unheard of. That touches so many people. Wow, she had a really calm conversation with me about this really difficult thing. Like, I was so afraid to say this to him, and he responded really lovingly. That impacts you and changes you. You know, it's like planting seeds. This is what we're always doing with each other. Like they say, you know, one smile affects a butterfly in Japan or something like that, like the butterfly effect. Or, you know, if you smile at somebody on the subway, you never know. That could change their life. It's like the small things make huge differences. And I would say that it's amplified like 1,000 times when you're coming from unconditional love, because we're living in a world that isn't exuding that at all. Maybe when like a baby is born, but then when that baby grows up and doesn't do things the way that you want them to, and doesn't like live by your exact rules and like presses all of your buttons, then sometimes that unconditional love isn't there, right? Then it shifts into conditional. So anytime that you can practice this, it's just like a beautiful example for the world to learn from. And also most people don't know how. So if you know how in some way, like maybe it's a little bit of a responsibility for you to teach others, even if it's just through your example. You don't have to like make a video series like I'm doing, but even if it's through the teeny tiny things. So like I said, like I started this with, like when my cousin picked up that water bottle that was like, seems like it was half a mile away from where we were walking. Every single time I see trash, I always think about that, and I'm like, I'm going to pick this up. And then I also feel good about myself because I'm like, I'm helping the environment. So love radiates, right? Love radiates. So the more that we can really share this, the better. So there's one other thing that I want to point out, and we've already touched on this a little bit, but noticing the judgments that you have with yourself and others. Judgments are not loving. So this is kind of like a thing that you could practice all day long. So a little bit different than what we were first talking about in your conversation, in like big conversations you might have to have, or even small ones. But your judgments are a really good place for you to check in with unconditional love. So some of us are really, actually, let's just say all of us are judgmental. Like, we have to have judgments because that keeps us safe. Oh, I shouldn't walk in this really dark alley that there's like, you know, nobody around and I'm carrying 5 Chanel bags. I've never carried a Chanel bag in my life, but whatever, you guys get it. So judgments are not loving. So true. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Whitney. So, or sharing that helped you. So yeah, like we need judgments in order to make decisions that are supportive for our lives. But there are other judgments that are purely of our ego and of us doing something to either make us feel like we're in control or make our ego feel better or less than. It goes both ways. So, I mean, on social media, it's so easy to compare yourself to others. That's a judgment that's also hurting you, even though because you're diminishing yourself. Oh, this person has everything. She's so pretty. She has a husband. She has a cute little golden retriever. She lives in Bali. I'm like making some random person up. You're diminishing yourself. Then someone over here is looking at you this way. So whenever you catch yourself making a judgment, notice, like, interesting, where is that coming from? And a lot of times, especially like for women with other women, I'll speak to this because I feel like a lot of people probably experience this. I saw a quote years ago and it really made a big shift in me. And it was like, another woman's beauty doesn't take away from your own beauty. And I think that especially when you're younger, and maybe through your whole life, but as women, I think that that's something that we actually think, like, oh, this person has more beauty than me, so that means I'm less beautiful. It's like, no, you're both beautiful. Like, roses are beautiful, and also so are sunflowers. They're just different, but neither is better than the other. So anyways, just noticing the judgments that you have, whether they're diminishing you or diminishing someone else, and asking, like, first of all, okay, let's switch to, like, this person is to this, or this person's like late all the time, or this person's like, well, that might be a good thing for you to know, but then notice what judgments come up with you around that. Who says I know best? Why do I think I know the best thing? Maybe they're actually doing it right and the way I'm doing things is wrong. Like, that's not true. But really asking, like, who made me, the grand judger? Yeah. Who made me in that title? Why do I get to judge this person? And notice, like, how much you make judgments. When you start to really pay attention to this, you're like, and we're always making judgments, but is it helpful for me? Is it helpful for me in any way for my energy to be spent on judging someone else? No, never. Unless it's an observation that you can use to support your life. So for example, what I just said, like, oh, this person's always late. Okay, then when I go to meet with them, I'm going to show up 15 minutes late because I know they're going to be late, or I'm just going to tell them, like, you can make adjustments that would support you in your expectations. If you have a best friend who's constantly late, you get what I'm saying. So that's a good way to start testing, like, where am I not being in unconditional love? And you could even say something to yourself when you catch yourself judging, like, oh, that really wasn't a loving thought. And actually you can dig into it, because usually the places that we're judging others are the places that we're judging ourselves the most. So notice even the area, like, is it with money? Is it with, like, and again, why, like, you probably all know someone who's like, they shouldn't be spending their money that way. It's like, who made you, like, Lord of Finances? Maybe they think that you should be spending more money because you're not having fun. So there's a lot of different ways. There's so many different ways that we could like play with this, but it's really catching yourself in the moment, being loving to yourself, not like, oh, there you go, judging again, but instead really saying, like, oh, there my mind goes again. There goes the mind. What am I judging about this time? What's the concept? Do I have my own stories around this? Why am I constantly judging people in this area? And then looking at whatever comes up for you with that. Where am I judging myself in that same area? And then the last thing, I always ask this with any thought that comes up, like, is this helpful though? Because our energy is so precious in general, like, and our energy, like, and the image that's coming in is like SpongeBob, you know how, like, or just a regular sponge, I guess. If you squeeze it, the water will come out of all the different holes. And it's like, we're just pouring energy out of all of these different, like, pores in our body all the time. And how can we hold all of that energy within? Judgment is just like, pss, pss, pss. It's like, and then you have less energy for whatever you're working on, for whatever you're excited about in life, or even just physical energy in the day. So yeah, I think that's what wants to be shared. This is going a lot longer than I thought. Hi, you guys. Thank you all for joining. So let me know in the comments if you're catching the replay or now too, what was the most, like, shifting for you, what you're really going to play with. We talked about a lot of different things, and a lot of it just comes down to being accountable with yourself and also being really loving and gentle with yourself, because we're all doing the best we can and we're all learning. And, you know, forgiveness for ourselves is important too, and apologies are also nice for other people. If you've caught yourself in the wrong, like, I don't want to say in the wrong, but you caught yourself doing something that's out of fear, that's always an option too. That's a very loving option. So I'll be back every Thursday at 6 o'clock to talk about unconditional love, whatever's coming through that day that wants to be shared. I chose 6 o'clock because the number 6 represents unconditional love. And so if you see like 666, a lot of people think that that's like the devil number. It's not. It's representative of unconditional love. So if you see that number, what it's probably saying to you is either how can you be more unconditionally loving to yourself, or like there's an area that you're not showing up in this in, and you'll probably know immediately. And maybe even for someone, me just saying that, you're like, oh yeah, like I need to go apologize. Or like, yeah, this is an area for me to work on. So put some emojis in the comments if that's you, or if that resonates for you. The only other thing that I'll share is that this week, so most of the ways you can work with me now are either in Akashic record readings or through working with me in a mentorship capacity. So I'm starting to open that stuff up, and I'm creating some really exciting opportunities there. But Akashic record readings are on sale through the end of the 31st. So it's basically like I'm going to make a video for you on what the Akashic records actually are, but it's a one-on-one personalized session for you live on Zoom. You can record it, you can keep it, you can watch it again. It's messages from your guides that are totally custom. And I just channel the information, so it's actually not even coming from me. And actually Trisha's on this. Hi. And she was saying, or I'm sorry, it wasn't Trisha, it was someone, I had a reading yesterday and she was saying this. And she was saying, it's just like you're a translator for my spirit guides and for my ancestors and loved ones. They're speaking directly to me, but you're just translating it. They're speaking in another language. It's kind of like that. And then I share with you everything that I'm seeing, which is just kind of cool. And it takes you on a little like visual journey. And yeah, so those are on sale through the 31st. And then as long as you book by the 31st, anytime through April or the end of March, you'll save $25 on your reading. So if you want to do that, just DM me. You can book it at my website, alliewilkins.me. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining, for spending your time with me. Trisha said, so true. It was an amazing process. I'm so happy that you had such a great experience. So thank you. Tune again next week if you'd like to catch the next episode, and comment or message if you have any specific questions that you want me to cover during these sessions. All right. Good night, you guys. Have a great rest of your day.